When my father called that morning, his voice sounded too cheerful to be real. "Ava, honey, we're having a little get-together for your sister's birthday. You should come home." Home. The word still made something twist in my chest. I was Ava Carter, 32, Chief Technology Officer of a tech company in Dallas, the youngest woman in my firm to ever hold that title. My parents lived in Atlanta, surrounded by marble floors, catered dinners, and the illusion of perfection. I hadn't set foot in that house in almost a year since the last time my mother called my promotion cute, and my father asked when I'd stop acting like one of the boys. Still, I said yes, maybe foolishly, maybe because some part of me still hoped that, this time, they'd see me, really see me. When I landed in Atlanta, the city lights blinked like memories I didn't want. Elaine Carter, my mother, texted within minutes, "Don't be late, sweetheart. Lydia's night is important. Dress appropriately." That was always her language appearances. Reputation. The right lighting. By the time I pulled into the circular driveway of the Carter estate, valet cars already lined the front. Through the tall windows, I could see chandeliers and champagne flutes glinting under warm light. My stomach tightened. The door opened before I could knock. Elaine stood there, flawless in her cream suit and pearl necklace, a smile too polished to be real. "You made it," she said, kissing my cheek. "Try not to talk about work tonight." "All right, Lydia gets nervous when you do." I laughed softly, though it wasn't funny. Inside, I spotted my sister, Lydia Carter, across the room. She was radiant in gold satin, surrounded by friends and laughter, her voice carrying over the music. She'd been unemployed for years, but that never stopped her from being the star. My father's words echoed in my mind. She's just finding her path. When Richard Carter, my father, saw me, his smile looked almost proud almost. "There's my brilliant daughter," he said, clapping me on the shoulder. "You'll make this night special." I wanted to believe him. As the string quartet began to play and champagne glasses clinked, I tried to quiet the unease rising in me. I'd come to celebrate my sister, not fight old battles. Still, something about my father's grin lingered too long, like a secret waiting to be spoken. I told myself it was just a party. I didn't know it would end with the whole room watching me break. The first thing I noticed when I stepped deeper into the living room wasn't the laughter, it was the hierarchy. My family always arranged people like furniture, and tonight was no exception. Lydia stood in the center, glowing under chandelier light like she'd been cast for the role of favorite daughter. I was just an extra who wandered in from a different movie. Elaine floated from guest to guest, the perfect hostess. Every smile of hers was calibrated, every compliment designed to echo back to Lydia. "She's always been our sunshine," she said, her pearls glimmering under soft light. When I passed by, she gave me a distracted pat on the arm. "Oh, Ava, thank you again for coming. You look serious." As always, translation: too much ambition, not enough warmth. Richard was talking near the bar, his voice carrying over the music. He was telling some story about raising two beautiful daughters with completely different gifts. I already knew how it ended. Lydia was the heart. I was the mind. And according to him, hearts made families while minds made distance. The guests laughed at his punchline, and I pretended not to hear. I poured myself a glass of champagne, the bubbles soft against the ache rising in my throat. Around me, conversations bloomed like carefully pruned flowers. Every compliment directed at Lydia landed with practiced precision. "You've got such natural grace. Your parents must be so proud. You'll find your calling soon. I just know it." No one asked what I'd been working on. No one mentioned my company's recent award or the partnership deal that took months to secure. Achievement, in this house, was a foreign language no one cared to learn. Uncle George, tipsy and loud, spotted me from across the room. "There's our tech genius," he boomed. "Still single, still coding away your life." He laughed before I could answer. raising his glass toward Lydia. You, on the other hand, know how to live. The crowd joined in his laughter, and for a second, I felt like a child again standing at the edge of a dinner table I didn't belong to. Lydia found me later near the dessert table, a plate of macarons balanced delicately in her hand. Try to relax. Ava, she said sweetly, you're wound so tight. Dad worries about you. Does he? I asked, keeping my tone light. Of course. He just wants you to share some of your good fortune. The words slid out easily, rehearsed, and they stung more because she said them with a smile. As the quartet shifted into a slower tune, I noticed my father moving toward the small stage area, a microphone in hand. The crowd began to gather. I told myself it was just another toast, another night of pretending. But somewhere deep down, my pulse quickened. Because in our family, every compliment had a blade behind it, and tonight, I could already feel it pressing against my skin. The music dimmed just enough for my father's voice to carry across the room. If I can have everyone's attention, Richard Carter said, tapping his glass with the edge of a fork. Conversations faded. Laughter softened. The guests turned toward the small platform near the grand piano, where my father stood under the warm glow of the chandelier. He looked proud, commanding, exactly as he always did when he had an audience. I was still at the bar, halfway through a champagne refill, when he caught my eye and smiled the kind of smile that meant he was about to perform. Tonight, he began, we celebrate the incredible woman our Lydia has become. Polite applause followed. Lydia pressed her palms together in mock surprise. Cheeks flushed under the attention. She looked luminous, fragile in her perfection. She's our free spirit, my mother added from her seat, her voice soft and admiring. She brings light wherever she goes. I bit the inside of my cheek, the sweetness of champagne turning sharp on my tongue. But my father continued, tonight isn't just about celebrating Lydia's birthday, it's about celebrating generosity, family, and unity. The room hummed with interest. My pulse slowed. Something about his tone felt staged, rehearsed. He turned toward me. And for that, he said, his voice swelling with pride, we have our younger daughter, Ava, to thank. Dozens of eyes turned in my direction. My glass froze halfway to my lips. Ava, he said warmly, in a gesture of love and sisterhood, has decided to gift her penthouse, her beautiful $3 million home to her sister Lydia, a new beginning for her, a chance to start fresh. The room erupted into applause. I couldn't breathe. For a moment, the world went still, like the air had been sucked out of it. Then sound rushed back, clapping, laughter, words of praise. That's incredible, someone said. Such a generous sister. Family first, right. Lydia covered her mouth, feigning shock. Oh my God, really? She gasped, eyes wide. But I saw it, the glint beneath the performance, the way her lips twitched upward before she looked at me. She knew. She'd known all along. I set my glass down carefully, the stem rattling against the marble. My throat felt dry, my skin too tight. Dad, I said quietly, but it was enough. The room hushed. I didn't agree to that. My mother's smile faltered. Sweetheart, don't ruin the moment. Ruin what I asked. My voice steadying. The lie whispers cut through the silence like static. Ava, my father warned, his smile now a thin blade. This isn't the time. It wasn't ever the time. Was it? I said. Because you never asked. You just decided for me. Lydia's hand fluttered toward her chest. Ava, please, she whispered, performing grief. The tension thickened until even the string quartet stopped playing. I could feel 30 pairs of eyes on me, pity, judgment, curiosity, all of it pressing like weight on my chest. I worked for that home. I said, every late night, every deal, it's mine, and I'm not giving it away to make anyone look generous. The applause died. My father's face darkened, pride twisting into anger. "You're embarrassing this family," he said through clenched teeth. "No," I answered softly. "You already did." The slap came before I could even see his hand move. The sound cracked through the silence, echoing off the marble floors. My head snapped to the side. The room gasped in unison. My pearl earring flew, spinning across the floor until it disappeared beneath a table leg. For a moment, I just stood there motionless, stunned. Someone's phone light blinked red. Recording. "Richard," my mother shouted, but too late. He stared at me, chest heaving, hand trembling. The guests froze, caught between horror and fascination. I didn't cry. I didn't speak. Slowly, I bent down, searching the floor, my fingers brushing cold marble until I found the earring. I held it up, glinting under the chandelier's light. Then I looked at my sister, at the perfect daughter, the golden child, and smiled. "Happy birthday." "Lydia," I said, slipping the pearl into my pocket, and before anyone could stop me, I turned and walked out. The hallway outside the ballroom was silent except for the echo of my heels. My cheek burned, my pulse hammered in my ears, but my face felt strangely calm, like my body had decided to freeze before it shattered. Behind me, the muffled sound of guests whispering rose and fell like distant waves. I stopped near the front door, catching my reflection in the glass. My lipstick had smudged, my eyes wide and steady. For a moment, I just stared. I didn't look like a victim. I looked done. The heavy door creaked open, and cool night air swept in. I stepped outside, the laughter and music trapped behind me, like a world I'd just outgrown. My phone buzzed in my clutch, Sophie Lynn calling. I answered before I could think. "Ava, what's wrong?" "You sound he slapped me," I said, my voice level, in front of everyone. "What?" she gasped. Richard did what I leaned against the marble column, letting the night steady me. He announced I was giving Lydia my penthouse. I said no, and he hit me. For a few seconds, there was only silence on the line. Then Sophie's voice sharpened. "You need to call your grandmother. Call Eleanor. If I do, it'll destroy them," I whispered. "She'll make it public. She always does." "They already destroyed you," Sophie said. "You're not the one who should be ashamed." The truth of her words hit harder than the slap had. I looked back through the tall windows. Inside, my father was pacing, my mother clutching a napkin, Lydia surrounded by guests pretending to comfort her, the picture of a family falling apart in real time. My thumb hovered over Eleanor Whitmore's name in my contacts. My grandmother, the only person in our bloodline who had ever seen through the Carter performance. She'd once told me, "Silence is how cowards survive. Speak, and you'll stand alone, but you'll stand." I closed my eyes, inhaled the cold air, and pressed the call button. The ringtone hummed once, twice. Then her voice steady, commanding, answered. "Ava." "What happened?" I swallowed hard, feeling the tremor finally break through my composure. "It's time you came home." "Grandma." 30 minutes later, the air inside the Carter estate had curdled into unease. The music had stopped. The guests whispered in corners, and Lydia's perfect smile was starting to crack beneath layers of pity. My mother's voice drifted from the dining area, sharp, frantic, desperate to contain the shame. My father stood rigid by the bar, the stem of a glass trembling between his fingers. He kept repeating the same words to anyone who would listen. She overreacted. She embarrassed us. No one seemed to believe him. Then, a sound cut through the noise, a hard, rhythmic knock against marble. The front doors swung open, and Eleanor Whitmore stepped inside. 80 years old, silver-haired and formidable. She moved with the quiet command of a woman who'd never needed to raise her voice to be obeyed. Her cane struck the floor once, twice, echoing through the silence. Every head turned. Even my father's color drained from his face. "Mother," he started, voice brittle. "You shouldn't have save it." she interrupted. Her gaze swept the room like a searchlight. I came because my granddaughter called me. Imagine my surprise when I learned why. No one dared breathe. Eleanor's eyes fixed on me where I stood in the doorway behind her. She gave me a brief nod acknowledgement, not comfort. Then she turned back to the crowd. "Richard," she said, voice steady as stone, "explain why you laid a hand on your daughter." The silence thickened. He opened his mouth, closed it, tried again. "It was a misunderstanding," he stammered. She defied me, humiliated the family." "No," Eleanor said, tapping her cane once more. "You humiliated yourself." Lydia stepped forward, clutching her glass like a prop. "Grandma, please. It's not as bad as it looks." Eleanor didn't even glance her way. "You have 5 minutes," she said, "to find the earring your father knocked from your sister's ear." 5 minutes, Lydia. "Or I'll find the truth myself." A murmur rippled through the room. Lydia froze, her painted smile collapsing. My mother looked around helplessly, whispering, "Mother, please don't make a scene." A scene. Eleanor turned her sharp eyes on her. "You think I care about scenes? You let your husband strike your child. You made this scene." The room held its breath. Lydia dropped to her knees, her designer dress dragging across the marble as she began searching the floor. Guests exchanged uneasy glances. No one moved to help. My father looked like a man trapped in his own reflection, furious, humiliated, small. Eleanor moved to the center of the room, her presence filling it like gravity. "I raised this family to stand for integrity," she said quietly. "Seems I failed more than I thought." Her words hit harder than any slap could. I stood near the doorway, my cheek still throbbing faintly, my heart pounding with something close to relief. For the first time, someone else was holding them accountable. 5 minutes passed. No one found the earring. Eleanor turned toward me, her voice carrying finality. "Come stand with me. Ava," she said. "We're not done yet." I walked back into the room, my heels clicking softly against the marble. Every face turned toward me, the daughter who had been struck, the one who dared to leave. The murmurs quieted, leaving only the sound of my grandmother's cane tapping once, then twice, on the floor. Eleanor Whitmore stood like a judge before a trembling jury. Her presence alone demanded silence. She looked at my father first. "Richard Carter," she said, her voice calm but razor sharp. "You've built a business, a name, and an image. But tell me, what good is a reputation if you've lost the respect of your own child?" He shifted, his jaw tightening. "Mother, you don't understand. I understand perfectly." She cut in. "You hit her because she refused to hand over what she earned. You wanted obedience, not family." He tried to protest, but the weight of her stare silenced him. Then she turned to Elaine, who stood beside him, pale and trembling. "And you stood by and watched. I taught you better than that." Elaine's voice cracked. "I just wanted to keep the peace." "Peace without justice is cowardice," Eleanor said. "You call that peace?" The guests shifted uneasily. Lydia remained on her knees, eyes darting between us all, the perfect mask of innocence beginning to crumble. "And you, Lydia," Eleanor said, turning her gaze on her eldest granddaughter. "You've drained this family's love and money for years, smiling while others paid your debts. Your sister worked. You performed." Lydia's lower lip trembled. "Grandma, please, I didn't know Dad was going to—" "You knew," Eleanor said coldly. "You've always known." A hush fell so deep it felt sacred. Eleanor moved toward the center of the room, resting her hand on her cane. The chandeliers flickered, casting ripples of light across her face. "This family has forgotten what honor looks like," she said. "So I'll remind you." She turned to the crowd. "As of tonight, I'm rewriting my will. Every estate, every share, every investment, I'm leaving it all to Ava Carter." Gasps broke the silence. Elaine let out a strangled sound. My father's grip on his glass tightened until it cracked. Lydia stood, face contorted in disbelief. "You can't!" my mother shouted. "She's turning us against each other." "No," Eleanor replied. "You did that yourselves." The whispers started again, shocked, fascinated, judgmental. Phones lifted, capturing the moment that would soon ripple through every corner of our social circle. I didn't move. I just stood there, heart steady, the echo of my grandmother's words wrapping around me like armor. Richard's voice wavered. "Mother, you're overreacting. Ava's fine. She's strong. She doesn't need strong." Eleanor snapped. "Because she had to be. Because you gave her no choice." The silence that followed was absolute. Lydia's sobs broke it, but no one reached to comfort her. Even the string quartet in the corner sat motionless, their instruments silent in their laps. Eleanor turned to me at last. Her expression softened not with pity, but pride. "You don't need their approval anymore. Child," she said, "you've earned your place." I swallowed hard, my eyes burning. "Thank you, Grandma." "Don't thank me," she said. "Thank yourself for surviving them." I felt the room spin not with dizziness, but release. The walls that had once made me feel small now seemed to shrink around them instead. Eleanor lifted her chin one last time. "Let this be the last lesson this family ever forgets." And with that, she turned toward the door, her cane striking marble like a final verdict. By morning, the story had already spread beyond Atlanta. Someone's live stream from the party had gone viral overnight. "Wealthy father slaps daughter over $3 million penthouse." The headline burned across every screen, every gossip feed, every social platform that fed on scandal. I woke to hundreds of messages, most from strangers. "You didn't deserve that. Your courage gives me hope." Some called me brave, others called me cold. Either way, the internet had chosen its side. My father's company issued a press statement by noon, empty words about family misunderstandings and private matters. It didn't work. Clients began backing out. Sponsors pulled funding. Investors vanished overnight. His empire built on image was collapsing under the weight of its own hypocrisy. Lydia's world cracked next. Her fiancé's family released a statement distancing themselves from ongoing family conflicts. The wedding was quietly canceled. She deleted her social accounts, but the screenshots lived on her crying face beside headlines calling her the golden sister who lost it all. As for my mother, she disappeared behind drawn curtains, refusing to answer calls from the press. The perfect hostess now hid in silence. The pearls she once flaunted turning into a chain she couldn't remove. Through it all, I stayed quiet. Sophie Lynn came over that night with takeout and a look that said everything. "You don't need to defend yourself," she said. "The truth did that for you." We sat on the couch in my penthouse, the same one they tried to take, and watched the skyline flicker through the glass. Atlanta looked different now, softer somehow. I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't triumphant either. Just free. For the first time, I didn't need to explain who I was, or fight to prove what I'd earned. For once. I told Sophie, "The silence feels good. It should," she said, smiling faintly. "You earned it." And for the first time in years, I believed her. It happened a week after the video hit 1 million views. I had just returned from a late meeting when the doorbell rang sharp, hesitant, familiar. Through the frosted glass, I saw 2 blurred shapes. My parents. For a moment, I considered not opening it, but something in me, the part that still believed closure mattered, turned the handle anyway. Richard stood in the doorway, shoulders slumped, a man deflated by his own downfall. Elaine beside him looked smaller too, her elegance stripped down to exhaustion. "Ava," she began softly. "We came to talk. I didn't invite them in, but I didn't close the door either. We're sorry," my father said, his voice rough. "We let things get out of hand. The pressure." The expectations, it all spiraled. I studied him, the man who once filled every room with authority, now unable to meet my eyes. Pressure doesn't excuse cruelty, I said quietly. Elaine stepped forward, tears gathering in her eyes. We never meant for it to go that far. Your father lost control, and I didn't stop him. I just wanted the family to stay together. By giving away my home, I asked. She flinched. Silence swelled between us. We thought helping Lydia would fix things, Richard said, but it broke everything. His voice cracked on the last word, and for a fleeting moment, I saw regret, real, raw, unguarded. We're still your parents, Elaine whispered. Can't we start over? I exhaled slowly, the ache in my chest both heavy and light. You can't start over by pretending it never happened. I said, I'm not angry anymore, but I'm done trying to belong to a family that never saw me. Elaine reached out, her hand trembling. I stepped back. Goodbye. Mom, Dad. The door closed softly, not in rage, but in peace. Their shadows lingered on the glass for a long moment before fading into the night. 3 days after my parents' visit, an email arrived. The subject line read, "For your records, E. Whitmore." My chest tightened before I even opened it. Inside was a scanned document, formal and unyielding, my grandmother's will, newly drafted and signed. Every property, every investment, every share of her company now bore my name. Beneath the signature, she'd added a single handwritten note. My decision stands. You've proven your worth not to me, but to yourself. I read the line 3 times, letting it settle. It wasn't about the money. It never was. It was about being seen, finally, for who I was rather than what I owed. That evening, Sophie Lynn came by with 2 cups of coffee and the same fierce grin she'd worn since the night of the party. We sat on the couch surrounded by quiet, the kind of silence that didn't hurt anymore. So, she said, nodding toward the laptop, does it feel real yet? It feels like it's over, I said, not the story, just the fight. Sophie smiled softly. Maybe that's what freedom actually is. Peace without permission. Outside, the city glowed beneath a slate blue sky, the same skyline I used to stare at when I felt alone. Now, it looked different, steady, alive, mine. I walked to the shelf and picked up the small box that held my repaired pearl earrings, the same pair that had fallen when everything broke. I turned them in my hand, their light catching the window. You keeping them? Sophie asked. Of course, I said. They remind me of what I survived and what I won't allow again. She nodded, lifting her cup. To boundaries, then, and to beginnings. I answered. The clink of our mugs echoed softly through the room, sealing the promise between us the past could stay behind us. But its lessons never would. 3 months later, Atlanta felt like a different city. Or maybe it was just me. From my penthouse balcony, the skyline stretched in gold and silver, a quiet constellation of everything I'd fought to build. The glass towers below caught the sunrise like mirrors. And for once, I saw myself reflected, not the daughter, not the disappointment, just Ava Carter, whole and unafraid. Work had become simpler, lighter. I'd been promoted to Chief Technology Officer officially, and the award for innovation still gleamed on my desk. The plaque read, for resilience, leadership, and vision. It meant more than any family praise I'd once begged for. Every now and then, my phone buzzed with news from the outside world, articles about my father's resignation, whispers that Lydia had moved out of state, my mother's name missing from charity lists. The empire they built on appearances had quietly crumbled. I felt no joy, no bitterness, just clarity. I opened my laptop to one unread message, another from Eleanor Whitmore. You've made me proud, child. Never apologize for success. I smiled, tears pricking behind my eyes. The words felt like a benediction, a closing chapter and a new beginning all at once. Sophie Lynn arrived a few minutes later, her laughter filling the apartment as she placed 2 coffees on the table. "You're glowing," she teased. "Peace looks good on you." I looked out the window again, the city unfolding beneath me. "Peace," I said quietly. "Finally feels like home." The sky shimmered as the first light broke fully over the horizon. I breathed it in, the calm after the storm, the sound of my own life finally belonging to me.